Now, Parliament resumes in Canberra next week. The Albanese government has a list of priorities it hopes to address in the first sitting fortnight of the 47th Parliament. With me now in the studio is the Assistant Treasurer, Stephen Jones, to talk about a few of those issues. But let's start, first of all, on one the government's having to manage, the foot and mouth disease risk. The National Party Senate leader, Bridget McKenzie, says the minister has been asleep at the wheel, that the moves that have been made, such as the disinfectant mats for those returning from Indonesia, should have been done weeks ago. What's your response to this? There's a lot at stake here, billions of dollars.
Look, a bit of self-reflection from the coalition wouldn't go astray. This mob couldn't manage biosecurity for human beings when we went through the pandemic. They stuffed up the vaccines, they stuffed up hotel quarantine, they stuffed up our border arrangements, and they want to lecture us about what to do on biosecurity with foot and mouth disease. I mean, the fact is, Minister Watt has been taking daily advice, sometimes multi-times a day advice from the scientists and the doctors and the vets inside the Agriculture Department, and the biosecurity advice as well. And on the basis of that advice, we've rolled out new measures in airports around foot baths and foot mats. Other protective measures are in place. We will move as quickly as is possible based on the best advice that is available to us. And if I'm going to take, advice from anyone, it'll be the Chief Medical Officer in the case of, COVID-19, and it'll be the Chief Vet Officer, and it'll be the biosecurity experts inside of agriculture, not the people who stuffed up the last pandemic.
Ross Greenwood just mentioned there that the ANZ boss welcomes our RBA review. Everyone being cautious not to bag the governor or to take pot shots, as the Treasurer put it. But would we be having the review if the RBA had got it all right recently in terms of keeping ahead of inflation?
Well, there's a team at the RBA. It's the board, it's the governance structure together with the RBA and his deputies. The purpose of the review is not to go after an individual. This is an organisation that hasn't been reviewed in over a decade. Absolutely critical to the management of monetary policy within the country. There have been some calls that have caught a lot of Australian businesses off guard. We were getting forward signalling at the end of last year on where interest rates were likely to go over the next 12 months, 2 years. And people were making economic and business decisions on the basis of that. Now everything's changed. Now, all of those circumstances aren't within the governor's control. There's been a huge spike internationally on inflation. We had to respond to that. But I think it's right. As important as the institution is, they're not beyond rebuke.
The bank, well, certainly not when we saw other central banks move faster.
Yeah, they're not beyond rebuke, they're not beyond review, they're not beyond reflection, and we need to do all of that, and that's what the review's set up to do.
On the economic statement to be released by the Treasurer as well, is this all about setting expectations ahead of the October budget, with that statement also looming in the first parliamentary sitting?
Yeah, look, Jim and Katie have been doing a tremendous job over the last 2 months spelling out the state of affairs, the state of the books, if you like, and the challenges that we're facing in the labour market, in product markets, with inflation, with monetary policy. But out of respect to Parliament and the Australian people, when Parliament reconvenes after the election, it's important that they stand up and make an authoritative statement to Parliament. And yes, it will frame the approach that we're going to be taking till the October budget. It's not the only thing we'll be dealing with next week, but it is important to signal the direction of the government, to stand in Parliament and say, these are our economic policies, but more importantly, these are our economic challenges.
A massive amount of interest being paid as well with rising rates.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Are you softening us up for some cuts?
There's a couple of huge issues we've got to deal with. Inflation is putting pressure on costs for government as well as every other household and business. Rising interest rates, the servicing of the debt that we've inherited, the $1 trillion worth of debt, is going up and up and up. This time next year, Kieran, we'll be spending more money on servicing the debt than we are on Medicare. So huge amount of money that we are going to be spending, in excess of $20 billion. That's huge dollops of money. We've got to bring the debt down. So yes, we're doing a review of wasteful and ineffective spending. We'll be announcing our response to that in the budget. We've got to bring some spending down. We've got to get rid of ineffective spending. And we've got to be frank with the Australian people about the state of the books and the state of the economy.
One of the top priorities for the government is the Jobs and Skills Australia bill. It's one of the things the Prime Minister flagged today as a top legislative priority. But isn't fundamentally the key here to boost skilled migration? We need more workers here, don't we? Right across the board.
Yeah, there's a couple of things we need to do at once. There's some urgent issues we need to deal with. We've spoken before about aged care, shortage of staff in the aged care system. But right across the economy, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in hospitality, whether it's in manufacturing or business services, we've got shortages. The long-term answer is not immigration, but it is a part of the short-term solution to boost the workforce for the several 100,000 worth of vacancies that we have right now. So Claire O'Neill's announced some initiatives this week which will bring forward all that visa processing, put all the effort into processing those offshore, highly skilled visas to fill shortages. But I don't think Australians want us to say every time we have a skills crisis, let's look offshore. I think they want us to say, let's train our own kids to ensure that they can fill those vacancies.
But sure, that makes sense.
That ain't going to happen overnight.
No.
So we've got to do both. We've got to deal with the immediate, and we will, but we've also got to say, what's the long-term solution? And Jobs and Skills Australia is the long-term solution to ensure we've got the right sort of training and education happening for the workforce needs that are emerging and actually upon us right now.
Stephen Jones, I appreciate your time.
Great to be with you.